Hey, I'm Douglas Moore from DSoundman, here with Kraft Music and the Nord Electro 7. I'm going to be talking about some of the improvements over the Electro 6 that the Electro 7 has, and we're going to jump right into it. Starting over on the left-hand side, the organ section on the Electro 7 has the organ modeling and the Leslie speaker effect from the Nord Organ 3. And this is fantastic because of the form factor of the Electro 7 being so portable. Now having the sounds and the modeling of the amazing Organ 3 in this package is phenomenal. So with the organ itself here, I'm going to go ahead and turn this section on and just walk you through a couple of the improvements that are provided here on the Electro 7. So within the organ section, we have this rotary speaker I'm going to turn on, and a couple of new things we have here is we have some mic positioning that we can do on our organ. So I've just play a few notes here. This is that Leslie speaker from the Nord Organ 3. And then as I change these mic positions, listen to how this affects the sound that we're hearing out of this, the Leslie cabinet. So we get just some slight different characteristics as you would actually physically positioning a mic different on a traditional Leslie cabinet. So we have that close, wide, and then our XY. And then besides the mic positioning, you'll see here on the drawbars themselves, we have these beautiful LED indicators carried over from the Nord Stage 4. They're also on the Nord Organ 3. And what this gives us for kind of a visual here is as we're changing programs on, let me go to my organ category here. As we're changing programs, even though the drawbars, the physical drawbars themselves aren't changing for the program changes, I can quickly see what the preset is. With the LEDs, and this is great as I'm performing, switching programs. I know when I go to move a drawbar, I can jump it quickly to that LED position and then move it from there. And as I load up those programs, you'll see that visual indicator there of the drawbars. And then as I'm moving those drawbars, you'll see those show me the level of the drawbar itself. The LED follows the physical drawbar. So this is new with the Electro 7, and the organ modeling itself just has this crisp nature to it and is an upgrade from what we have on the Electro 6 and even the Nord Stage 4. The Electro 7 has that Organ 3 modeling, which gives you that nice, crisp, clean organ sound. So moving on from the organ section, I'm just going to turn this section off very easily with the on-off button and turn the piano section on. What we see on the screen here is I was clicking through and pulling up programs for the organ. We can just press down on our new encoder for the Electro 7 and move into our category selection. So I can go to the acoustic pianos, push down, and I can choose from a list of piano programs built especially for the Electro 7. Now within the piano section itself, I'm just going to scroll to the white grand program here, tap Shift Exit to move out of the list select of our programs. And within the piano section, we have a couple of improvements over the Electro 6. One of those is the dynamic compression, and this is actually carried over from the Nord Stage 4 that was new there. Dynamic compression is adding almost a compressor to our piano sound to raise up the softer notes we're playing and lower or more match those with the heavier notes we're playing. Compared to a traditional compressor where you get almost the ceiling as you're bringing your compressor up, dynamic compression doesn't have that. So it evens out. If you're a soft player, it's going to raise up those soft and match them with the heavier notes that you're playing or the louder notes you're playing. We have 3 settings for dynamic compression on the Electro 7, and we can access those by holding Shift and tapping on our Unison dynamic compression button. I'm going to play softly and loud with each of these to show you what this dynamic compression is doing. And as I increase on that setting, you're going to see that it boosts the lower volume notes up more and more as we go. This is perfect for ballad soft playing where it just adds to the characteristic of those softer notes you're playing. Setting 1, 2, and 3. Notice how that's taking those soft notes and bringing the volume up compared to off. So this is 3 and then off. Notice the difference there. So as I'm playing, it highlights all of the beautiful characteristics of those softer played notes that you would get on an actual grand piano. Dynamic compression adds so much to the pianos because it helps you get a better quality sounding piano out of the Electro 7 because of the boosting of those softer notes. It's just going to mix in with everything else even better. There's a couple other changes that we have with the Electro 7 that are less towards the sound and more towards functionality. You'll see here the piano library. It used to be the piano select encoder we had, but on the Electro 7 we have this beautiful feeling encoder that has a push down feature to get into our piano category, piano lit. So we can scroll through our categories and then we can push down to select. Let's go to upright and push down and then scroll through our upright sounds, and then we can push again to select that sample. This is a wonderful feeling encoder. We can come in here, choose an electric, maybe we grab the EP9 Stockholm. It just makes finding samples so much easier, and you're going to see that as we move to programs and the synth. And then the last change we have here is in our timbre section. So this used to be the equalization of the piano on the Electro 6, is now timbre to bring it in line with what we have on the other Nord lineups. And this timbre is going to function very similarly to take just the overall dynamics of our piano sound and change those. So let me come back to a grand piano, and I play this here. If I go into my soft timbre, it's a beautiful, great for underscoring and just some of those softer ballads. Our mid, bright, And then with the electric pianos, you're going to get that Dyno 1 and Dyno 2 setting as well, which are going to add the kind of bell characteristics that you get with an electric piano. So I'll just show this, just kind of walk through the timbres here. You'll notice that bell characteristic coming in a little more. Even more. So similar to a traditional Rhodes where you can change your positioning, the timbre gives you that ability, allowing you to change the characteristic of a single sample and basically customize that to sound exactly how you want for your specific scenario. Moving on from the piano section over to our synth section, we have some substantial changes here on the Electro 7 that are really exciting because we now have taken something where we had samples and we could tweak the samples to now having virtual analog synthesis built into the Electro. So let me go ahead and turn the synth section on. I'll turn the piano section off. And I want to highlight a few things over in this section. So within our sound library itself, we have samples, analog, and FM. We can easily, again, similar to what we did on the piano section, push down on the encoder and scroll to select both our categories and the samples within, or the synth sounds within. Now, as you'll see on the screen, this screen is new for the Electro line, actually a brand new screen for Nord. It's taller than previous versions, it's color, it's easy to read, very vibrant, and I love that the layout within here and how we can move through things a lot faster than we could do in previous versions. So you'll see here on the screen I have these buttons underneath the screen that correspond with the soft buttons on the screen. Now, when we look at samples, this is very similar to what we've had in previous versions. We have our categories. We could press down on our nice big new encoder here for the selection of samples within there. Maybe it's an upright bass. And then we can use the synth adjustments over here in the right of the synth section. We have to actually turn the filter on. So hold shift and turn that filter on. And now I can use the synth controls to adjust my samples. It adds just a whole nother element of taking a sample and turning it into something completely different. Along with that, if I just press down on my sound library again and we go to analog, I have a whole bunch of presets for my analog virtual synth. So if I scroll through the categories here and we press down, we can scroll through. And then we can use these as a starting point to build and customize our own synth sounds. And where this gets really fun is when we hold shift and we press down on that same knob, we have two different things here. So within our analog synth, you'll see it automatically went to page 2. This is our filter. As I change my filter knob here, you'll notice on the screen, it's showing me a visual of the curve of that filter. We can change, you'll notice it's in legato. Only one note at a time. We could take that off. You'll see it shows my resonance and drive as well. So right away I'm able to not only have the control, but the visual to go along with the control. If I step back to page 1, this is where I can take and pick which analog waveform I want for this. So I can scroll through the different waveforms with my encoder here in the sound library. So you can take this, and this is in oscillator A. So the synth engine in the Electro 7 is a dual oscillator, dual filter. So you'll see here amp and filters. We have 2 filters we can use here, 2 oscillators, and we have all of our typical synth, kind of the core, our detune, our semitone, shift. And so if we come over and we turn our oscillator B on, and then I detune those, I can start to take that preset analog sound and customize it into exactly what I want for a synth sound. Now, on top of analog, we have FM virtual modeling as well. So let me exit out of here, go into my selection, and we can easily change our categories by holding Shift and pushing down on that encoder, and it'll cycle through FM samples and analog. Now you'll see my screen again changes for FM. So I'm in that details. If I just come out of here and go to my FM presets, I've got a bunch of different categories as well. So maybe we go with a FM pad. I have a bunch of different FM pads in here as presets. And then I can hold Shift and I can go into the edit for the FM virtual modeling. 3 pages here, so I'll start on page 1. We have our body and our spectra adjustments. We have, again, the balance and the feedback. And you'll see here that I have my FM type, that if I scroll, you'll see I can choose many different FM types, and then go over here, and as I change my button here for the amp body and the filter spectra, it changes, and then these 3 knobs here are going to correspond with the 3 knobs for body and the 3 knobs for spectra. I can change those here just by scrolling on the screen, and then I can change over to my OP1 or OP3, same as with the button there. Now on page 2, this is where I have my attack, decay, sustain, and release, or my ADSR for my 2 filters. And you'll see here, again, I can switch between those 2 filters here. And then on page 3, I have my settings for my keyboard scaling, both the low and the high. So as we're looking at the synth section in the Electro 7, it's not just samples that allow me to adjust them with that attack, decay, and release. It adds so much capability within this board and gets me really excited about the potential of what you can create in this little section right here. So not only do we have this improved capability within the synth section, but when you start to add effects to any one of the sound sections we've looked at so far, you just start to add even more sound building capability within this keyboard. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of my synth screen. I'm going to pull down my FM amount there, and let's look at the effects and how this can start to transform the sounds we have in our sections. Now what you're going to see over in the effects section is substantially different than the Electro 6. We have these gray background sections now, and these gray background insert effects are independent for each section. So no longer do we have to pick my mod 1 either goes to the organ, piano, or synth. I can have a mod 1 for the organ, a different mod 1 for the piano, and another one for the synth. So independent effects per section with the exception of the reverb. So the reverb is still global, but now we can set the wet dry amount of that reverb independently for each of our sections, which is a huge benefit because if I'm bringing reverb in, let's say I want reverb for this synth sound. So it's already started to shape this sound. If I take that all the way off, it doesn't have as much of this release to it. So you'll see it started to shape that. Well, I might not want that on my organ. So if I turn the organ section on, I don't want all of that reverb applied to the organ. I can just hold Shift, tap on my on button, which turns on my layer send. Now within my FX focus section, I just tap that to say for my organ, let's take that reverb all the way out. Much better. That organ's not washing out. I have that traditional organ sound with the washed out synth effect that we have there. So while your settings here for the type, the bright dark setting are global, the amount is independent, which I think is huge and kind of aligns with what the Piano 6 has, the Grand 2 has, now the Electro has. And on the effects themselves, we have some capability that was brought in from the Nord Stage 4 and some of the other lines in more recent releases, and that is, especially on the reverb, the bright dark setting. So I want to show this with a piano, so I'm going to turn my sections off, and you've watched me turn these sections on and off. That's how we layer on the Electro 7. So I can have an organ, a piano, and a synth all on at the same time, giving me essentially three layers here on the keyboard. But let's just go with a grand. You'll notice that it's washed out, and that's because of the reverb. We've got to switch our effects here, and I'm going to pull that reverb back. Now what we can do within the reverb, and I love this because oftentimes reverb can make the sound muddy. So we have a bright, dark, and normal setting, which is the equalization of the reverb itself. So I'm going to go normal first, and I'm going to bring this reverb up pretty high so you can hear it well. Go to dark. Notice the muted tone of that reverb. Go with maybe a soft timbre, throw some dynamic compression in there. So that's our nice dark, warm setting, but let's go to bright. It gives a brighter reverb sound, or we could go back to normal. But notice how normal almost takes up all of that EQ range. I love bright. And I want to show you, we have cloud reverb now on the Electro 7, carried in from that Nord Stage 4. So if we hold Shift and we tap on our reverb type button, we go into the variations, and the variation of these reverbs is the choral variation. So if we come down to our cathedral choral, this is our cloud reverb. Listen to how beautiful this reverb sound is. It just gives this heavenly sound to the piano, and we can use that cloud reverb in a multitude of ways in our samples, our synth, to just build sounds that are absolutely beautiful on this keyboard. Having the improved effects over here with independent effects for each of our areas allows us to really start to go off the beaten path as we're building programs and create some sonic capabilities here that are much greater than we could do with the previous Electro line. So now as we talk about the sound building capabilities of the Electro 7 and what we have within the sound sections and the effects over here, we have this center section called our program section. Now within here, we have some really nice improvements over the previous Electro lines, and partially because we now have a pitch and modulation wheel. Now this is available on the 273 key models of the Nord Electro 7 line. The 61 key does not have it, but on the 73s, with the pitch and modulation wheel, we have the assignment capability to the wheel itself. And speaking of keys, what I'm playing here is the HP 73 key, which is a hammer action. Now this is a beautiful action, custom built with Kawai for the Electro 7 specifically. And it's very similar in feel to the Grand 2, which is one of my favorite actions from a hammer action perspective. Somehow they've replicated that feel in the Nord Electro 7 without changing the form factor to have the big hammers of the Grand 2 and still keeping it light. And what I've noticed is the keys themselves, while they're weighted and they feel beautiful for piano playing, they're not overly heavy, neither are the Grand 2 keys. It's kind of this perfect middle ground for the piano player, but when I'm playing an organ, I can still slide in without burning my palms like a heavier weighted action. So somehow they've struck this beautiful balance with this Kawai weighted action, but still keeping it a little bit on the utility side so I can play those faster sounds. And the Kawai action is triple sensor, meaning not only do we have a top and bottom sensor to know when I press the key and when I let the key off, but we also have a sensor in the middle that allows me to re-trigger the sound without fully releasing the key. So for your true piano player, this is going to be amazing. Along with the half dampening you get with the Nord pedals, you can actually work in some really realistic piano playing with the Nord Electro 7 that previously you could only get on the Grand 2 or the Nord Stage 4. So beautiful that they've added that in here. And like I mentioned, I'm playing the hammer action. You've heard me play synth sounds and stuff like that. It's been fine, but it is beautiful for that piano action. Now, when it comes to the 73 key versions and that pitch and mod wheel, one enhancement we get here on the Electro 7 is the ability to associate parameters from our sections, not only with the expression pedal. I've got an FC7 plugged in here, but if we go to our pedal menu, you'll see you can use a volume style expression pedal, the Nord EP, the SP2, Roland EV7, the FC7 from Yamaha that I'm using. You'll see it gives me a nice little readout as I'm moving that pedal up and down, or Korg or Fatar SL. It's compatible with many volume style expression pedals here, and this not only allows us to take something like the volume and just hold down and we twist that knob, and now our piano volume, maybe that's something we would use to swell our organ, and we can tie that to an expression pedal. Great for organs, right? But we can also tie those same parameters to our modulation wheel, very similar to Morphisine on the Nord Stage 4 and the Nord Stage 3. So now we could take, let's go to our synth section, turn that on. And let's turn our filter on. So we have this string sound here that we're now using the filter of our synth section. Well, let's take that filter and let's assign that to our wheel. So all we have got to do is hold down on that wheel button, turn the knob that we want to assign, and now the filter frequency is assigned. We can assign multiple parameters to a single control, whether it's the modulation wheel or the expression pedal. So we could take a reverb send, the frequency knob of our synth, and the volume of a layer, and tie all of those to the same device control. It's a really nice feature, and you'll notice here that I get a green LED lit to show me that, hey, your frequency is associated to one of your controls. If I want to disassociate it, hold down on the wheel, turn it the opposite direction, and I've now taken that filter frequency and removed that from being assigned to my wheel. So this capability allows us to be more dynamic with our programs we're building, use our feet, use our modulation wheel to take a single program and make it apply to many different dynamics, especially as we're on stage, whether it's church or with a band, and where the stage dynamics are changing. We can change with that by building very dynamic programs. So we've spent some time looking at this beautiful new screen and the encoder to the right of it that we can push down to select our categories and our programs. But underneath this screen, we have 5 program buttons, which also double as our menu buttons. And this is an improvement on the Electro 6, where we only had 4. We now have 5, and these are amazing for quick recall of programs as we're working through a set. So we can set up and organize our programs in a way that we can just work through our pages and our programs very quickly with seamless sound switching. So I can be playing this program A21, switch to my next one, the piano still sustains. One thing Nord does so well is it doesn't reset my device controls. So I was holding the sustain pedal, it keeps the sustain. When I move to the next one, it remembers that sustain is on. Now I'm moving to an organ, so it doesn't matter. So I can switch very quickly through my different sounds, and I'll organize these according to my set list and then move through those by just tapping these buttons. This also doubles as our live mode buttons as well, so 5 live mode slots, which is a great scratch pad for building sounds. We don't have to worry about saving. It stores every tweak we make instantly. Then I can save those into a program and use those as part of my set. So these 5 buttons under the screen provide a lot of capability, and I love there's the addition of the 5th one now, because it just gives me an extra program that I can switch between quickly as I'm working through my set. Once again, this is Douglas with DSoundman, here with Kraft Music. If you have any questions on the Nord Electro 7 or any of the Nord product line, feel free to reach out to Kraft Music. They have a team of music professionals that are based right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that are ready to help you out.